Welcome to Absolute Fiction Reborn. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. It was dark, he could hear the faint sonic booms and explosions around him. His body felt numb and he felt like he was in a deep sleep. The faint noises went on for some time, until he heard someone shouting a phrase. At least that was what he could make out from the faint noise. What he heard next was the faint sound of a blast followed by a fading scream a second later. When the scream could not be heard, the blasting noise died down slowly till nothing was heard. There was silence. Moments into the silence, Gohan was regaining consciousness. The numbness he felt was slowly fading away and he could now move his fingers. He tried to open his eyes and they opened slowly, but with his vision still blurred. He looked at what was above him and he saw a figure levitating high up in the sky. "Dad? You did it, you defeated Majin Buu," whispered Gohan to himself as he sat himself up. His thoughts were stopped when he heard grunts and moans beside him. He looked to his side and saw that his friends were all alive. "Guys! You are all okay!" exclaimed the delighted Gohan. Looking at his pair of hands, this could only mean that he was alive. "Hey, it looks like they did it," said Piccolo in his usual low-toned voice while smiling. "Yay, Daddy defeated Buu!" cheered both Trunks and Goten. The unknown figure turned and started levitating towards the Z fighters. Gohan was getting excited. "Here he comes!" For a moment, all excitement was drained from Gohan as the figure got closer. It was a person, but it was neither Goku nor Vegeta. "That's not Dad. Nor is it Vegeta." Gohan became confused and worried. The unknown person landed in front of them with a soft thud. His hair stood upwards firmly with a widow peak and has two bangs sticking out like a downwards V shape. His wore a blue gi with an orange shirt underneath, and white gloves and boots similar to the ones Vegeta wore when he first came to Earth. He also wore a pair of yellow earrings and was about Goku's height. The most noticeable thing about him was that he looks as if Goku and Vegeta had merged together. However, looks aside, his ki was immeasurable, and the Z fighters have never met a person with this much ki. What enormous ki! Piccolo was stunned at the amount of ki he was sensing from the unknown man before him. With his mouth open in disbelief, Gohan muttered, "Dad, is that why?" The unknown man held out his hand, cutting off Gohan with a serious look on his face. He paused for a few seconds before speaking in what sounded like a mixture of two people's voices. "The ones whom you know as Kakarot and Vegeta no longer exists." For a moment, everyone could not believe their ears. Goku and Vegeta, they were dead along with Majin Buu? No, it can't be. Was it this new guy who killed both Goku and Vegeta? But there was not the slightest hint of evil in this guy's ki. Thoughts of what happened to both Goku and Vegeta were what everyone was thinking. "What do you mean they no longer exist? And who are you?" Piccolo questioned in a demanding way. The unknown man smirked, folding his arms before declaring, "I am the result of the fusion between Kakarot and Vegeta." He then pointed to his earring before continuing, "A being born through the use of these Potara earrings. Call me Vegito." On the fourth planet from the Sun, two astronauts were conducting scientific research on the planet, hoping to find some elements that proves that life can be sustained on Mars. "Would you look at that, a little slice of heaven," said an astronaut while staring into the depth of space above him. His partner looked a little irritated. "Carter, we didn't come for the view. We are here for scientific research. Now concentrate on the objective, will you?" The astronaut just smiled back at his friend. His partner rolled his eyes before asking, "So, any readings on your side?" Carter looked at his machine readings and it showed no signs of water being detected. "Nope, no detectable levels of H2O," he replied in a disappointing tone while turning to face his partner. Just then, in a few meters away, something shiny caught his attention. "Hold on." Carter stopped whatever he was doing and hopped over to the shiny object. "What is it?" his partner replied. As the gravity was smaller on Mars as compared to Earth, Carter was able to hop quite a few distance before landing beside what looked like a crystal. He knelt down, took out his pickaxe and started mining the unknown crystal, which was gray in color. He thought aloud, "Could be an ice crystal." His partner was startled upon hearing what he said and removed his detector-like device, going over to find out what his partner had discovered. If it was an ice crystal like what Carter said, then it would be a breakthrough in the research on Mars. With each hop he got even more excited. With that last chunk of rock out of the way, Carter brushed off the debris from the crystal caused by the mining with his pickaxe. With little effort, he removed the crystal and stood up inspecting it. It was smooth and unlike other rocks or crystals, its texture was completely different. He corrected his previous statement, "No, it's not an ice crystal at all. It looks almost organic." Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound coming from beneath the two astronauts. Carter's partner stopped a meter away from him upon hearing the noise. The rumbling grew louder and louder, and soon the ground beneath them started to vibrate. "Carter, look out!" His warned while pointing to the floor in front. Carter, who was engrossed in the organic crystal, was shook back to reality and turned to his friend before turning back at where his friend was pointing to. The spot where he mined the crystal was starting to collapse and the hole grew bigger as more chunks of rocks gave way to the earthquake. More cracks started to form and those existing ones started to crawl outwards, with more of the terrain giving way. Carter took a few steps back before turning and running for life together with his partner ahead of him as the terrain started to give way even more. His partner managed to escape to higher grounds unharmed, but Carter was not so lucky. The ground beneath him crumbled as he took his next step and gave way, causing Carter to fall deep into the dark abyss. Soon enough, the earthquake stopped and all that was left was a huge hole filled with chunks of the terrain. After recovering from his shock, Carter's friend turned around and saw that Carter was missing. "Carter, come in. Do you read me? Carter." He anxiously tried to get a response from Carter through the communication device built in his suit, but no one replied. Rolling and tumbling along with the debris, Carter landed in a dark unknown. "I'm okay, Ed. Ed? Come in, Ed." He repeatedly tried to get his partner, Ed, to respond, but the communication signal was dead. He was on his own. Because the cave was pitch black, Carter turned on the torchlight on his helmet and surveyed his surroundings. The area where he arrived from was sealed by debris and rocks, and that he was in what seemed like a cave. He turned around and gasped at what was before him. It was like a wall of some sort with some strange writings carved onto the wall. He couldn't believe his eyes that there was actually a structure built underground of Mars. He had made a groundbreaking discovery. Carter traced the walls to its end and what he saw left him in awe. It was as if he was at the entrance of some sort of structure. He then made his way to what Carter thought was the entrance to the structure. In the middle of it was some mechanism that looks as if it was a lock of some kind keeping the structure's entrance sealed. "I wonder what's behind his entrance. Maybe I can pry open this mechanism," Carter thought to himself as he placed both hands on the lock and tried to turn it with all his might, but it was not budging. Then he remembered that he has his pickaxe. Carter turned to look for his pickaxe and saw it in a distance behind him from where he first entered the cave. He picked it up and stuck it into the lock mechanism on the entrance. He summoned all of his muscle strength to try and pry it off. "Garrett!" Carter grunted, and true enough, the lock gave way and a clink sound was heard. In place of the lock was now a circular hole, and as Carter went closer to inspect it, light shone from within the structure, which can be seen through the hole. The light spread upwards through the markings on the entrance and then it opened by itself, revealing nothing but blinding light. Echoes could be heard which sounded like shrieks, and Carter was taken aback by it. While he was processing what was happening in front of him, something came from within the blinding light, and the last sound anyone heard was Carter's screams. 2 years later. Nighttime, in a Metropolis satellite lab, a black figure was running across the roof. He found a grill-locked air ventilation and removed the metal frame before stealthily jumping down, landing on a platform near the ceiling. 4 scientists were working late into the night and one of them was about to leave. The dark figure remained in the shadows on the platform and observed the 4 as he sensed something suspicious. "Remember, barbecue at my place Saturday night. You're all invited," declared one of the scientists excitedly. "I'll be there," replied one of his colleagues, who was an Asian and skinny looking. "Sounds great," replied another of his colleague, who was probably a man in his 60s. "All right, see you there." replied the last person, who was a slightly plump and dark-skinned woman. "Ha ha, good night," said the scientist, who left the lab after waving goodbye to his fellow colleagues. As soon as the doors are closed, there was a few seconds of silence before one of the remaining scientists stood up. The dark figure who was still hidden in the shadows paid closer attention while still remaining hidden. One of them spoke in some unknown language and the other two stood up as well. The three suspicious scientists then walked over to behind where their workstations are. There were two big metal storage cupboards, and the skinny-looking Asian went up to one of them and lifted it up with ease, exposing the wall behind it. The dark figure, who was still in the shadows, gave a look of surprise, as there was no freaking way that skinny-looking Asian could have lifted, let alone move, that heavy metallic cupboard with such ease. He continued to observe and saw the dark-skinned woman walk towards the exposed wall before literally grabbing, using one hand, a chunk of the wall out, revealing what looked like a weirdly shaped black object with three red circular marks linked to one another by white patterns all over. The woman then took the object out and held it in her arms protectively before speaking in the same weird language. The skinny guy placed the cupboard down to where it belonged before the three headed towards the elevator. The hidden figure shifted his position whilst keeping track of them as the three walked into the elevator, which was going up. He narrowed his vision, determined to see what they are up to. Arriving on the roof, the three suspicious individuals climbed up the giant satellite mounted on the building itself. They walked along steel supports on the dish and head towards the transmitter at the center. The two stopped halfway while the woman carrying the black object continued towards the transmitter. She placed the object onto it and the black object changed, somehow transformed into a liquid state and went into the transmitter. As soon as it went it, they heard someone spoke in a low tone, "I doubt that modification is legal." They turned around, but only to have two of them being tied up by two well-thrown bolas, rope with weights tied on each end. An hidden figure from before leapt on the two before jumping off, using them as a platform, knocking them down. He landed in front of the dark-skinned woman before speaking in a superior tone, "You guys should have stuck to your desk jobs." The unknown figure was a well-built man who was suited in a dark gray suit. The first noticeable feature about him was the bat logo on his chest. He was wearing a black-colored bat-eared hood, as well as a black-colored cape. He also wore black gloves that reached near his elbow and had three sharp razor-like blades attached at the side. And his boots too were black in color. He goes by the alias of the Batman, a crime-fighting superhero of Gotham City. As the Batman walked towards the woman, she suddenly went on the aggressive but with an expressionless face. She threw a right fist and he ducked just in time. He was not expecting that. The woman threw another right and this time, Batman blocked it using his arm. He was surprised as the strength behind that punch was abnormal. Caught off guard, a left swing hit his face and as soon as he turned back to face his opponent, a fist went straight to his guts. He bent over with his eyes open wide. Batman was shocked at the strength behind that blow and knew this woman was not ordinary. While still stunned from the pain, the woman literally grabbed and threw him a distance. The Batman landed but on his knees, massaging his face where he was hit. "This isn't gonna be an easy fight," he thought, as his eyes narrowed as he thought of a strategy against these abnormal people. The other two guys who were tied together stood up and suddenly changed their body to become thinner to free themselves. It was as if they were rubber. The bolus that was constricting them earlier fell to the ground and they were free. The woman then went on the attack first and ran a few steps towards Batman before leaping to abnormal heights. She stuck one leg out with the other tucked, wanting to knock him down, but he jumped backwards, evading her kick. Whilst in midair, he took out one of his signature weapons, the batarang, and threw it towards the woman. The batarang spun and flew towards the woman and it hit her head with a metallic clash before bouncing off her head. There was not even a single scratch and was as if her head was made of solid rock. The skinny-looking Asian ran towards the Batman and with his abnormal strength, he pushed Batman off the platform. In a quick reaction, the Batman took out his bat grapple and fired it towards the platform where it attached itself firmly. Using the momentum he got from the fall, he swung himself right back up to the platform. "Need a hand?" asked a guy from behind. Batman turned around and knowing who it was, He turned back to his enemies. "Thanks, but I can handle this," said the Batman in irritation as he preferred to handle the situation alone. The man was floating in midair and he wore a red cape and a blue outfit with a red S-shaped symbol on his chest. This was Superman the Kryptonian, superhero of Metropolis City. "They don't look so tough," said Superman with confidence. Seeing that another opponent has joined in, one of them spoke in the weird language which probably was to signal the rest to run away. And so they did, as the three turned their backs and ran with Batman and Superman giving chase. Superman was pretty confident that he could end this quick, but out of a sudden, images began flashing through his mind causing great pain. He screamed while grabbing onto his head till the images were gone and momentarily passed out from the pain. He fell crash landing behind, causing the Batman to turn around wondering what happened to him. As the Batman tended to Superman, the three scientists ran to the other side of the satellite. One of them stopped and took out a controller which looked like a miniature version of the black object placed in the satellite transmitter. He aimed it at the transmitter before pressing the controller, activating the black stuff. Energy started gathering in the transmitter for a while before it glowed yellow. With his bat senses tingling, Batman placed Superman's arm over his shoulders, supporting him up before making an escape from the transmitter. The three scientists jumped off the satellite dish, free falling down towards the ground. With the bat grapple still attached to the satellite and Superman's arm over his shoulders, the Batman jumped off the satellite dish as the transmitter exploded. Other parts of the satellite began detonating one after the other. One of the explosions caused Batman to lose grip on his bat grapple, dropping Superman, throwing them both downhill. They tumbled and rolled for quite a while before coming to a stop halfway. Looking at the destroyed lab, Batman spotted the three scientists who landed a distance away beside the lab. Their bodies were bent in weird angles and one of them even got his arm stuck through the other's chest. The woman bent her painfully angled head back with a sickening crack and left the area with the other following two behind. They walked off unscathed into the woods, leaving no evidence behind. Batman could only watch as his arm was injured from the explosion that hit him and Superman earlier. Just then, Superman woke up clutching his head. "What happened?" he asked no one in particular. "You tell me," replied the Batman while helping the Man of Steel up. "I'm not so sure. I saw images, they were so intense and then, nothing." "Well, that's all I can remember," said Superman while trying to recall what he experienced earlier from the mental attack. Batman then turned towards the destroyed lab. "Obviously they didn't want to leave evidence behind," said the Batman, changing the subject as he knew it was pointless getting Superman to recall something that he could not remember. Confused at what was going on, Superman asked, "What's this all about?" Batman turned back to face Superman before telling him of his findings. "Over the past few months I've detected several security breaches in our global deep space monitoring network." "Then no one's claimed responsibility?" Superman questioned. "No, there's to this than it meets the eye," stated Batman, believing that there was something fishy going on. "I'd like to stay and look into it, but I'm expected back in Metropolis," said Superman while reaching for one of his compartments on his belt. He took out a watch and handed it to the Batman. "It's a signal watch, call if you need any more help," Superman told Batman before taking off into the skies towards Metropolis City. Batman gave the watch a look and thought aloud, "Right. As if the Batman requires help. He works alone." Looking at the destroyed lab which was in flames, he recalled the difficulties he encountered when combating those abnormal people or whatever they are. "Best I keep this with me just in case," Batman thought to himself. He gave the watch one last look before keeping it in his utility belt. He went back to his Batcave to recuperate and plan for his next course of action. A few minutes after the Batman left the crime scene, the air above the burning satellite lab started to shimmer. Greenish lightning crackled around the shimmering area and a green portal expanded from the center. From there, a man wearing a blue martial arts gi with an orange undershirt with white gloves and boots fell out of the portal. With his quick reflexes and ability to fly, he stopped himself in midair. The man had hair that stood firm upwards with a widow peak. He also had two bangs like a downward V shape. Phew, managed to stop myself in time, said the martial artist. Almost immediately, the fire below caught his attention. His expression turned into that of a serious and concentrated one as he thought to himself, looks like something happened just before I got here. With the ability to sense the key, life force, of others, he picked up three irregular key signatures not far from his location. This key isn't human, and going in the direction away from here fast. The martial artist smirked. I think I'm beginning to like this place. Levitating in midair with a pair of Potara earrings reflecting the moonlight, things are going to be exciting now that he has arrived. Enter, Vegito. DBZ Universe, 3 months ago. Ever since Majin Buu was annihilated, Earth was at peace. The Z fighters however, had a new problem to deal with. After his proper introduction to the Z fighters, both Chi-Chi and Bulma raised the burning issue of which side of the family is Vegito technically on. The Z fighters were stumped as it never crossed their minds, but Vegito just raised an eyebrow and gave them a confident answer saying, why not both? Chi-Chi and Bulma at first were both hesitant to share a husband, but the reminder of how hard both Goku and Vegeta always fought to protect them ultimately made them agree to it, and neither sides felt sore about it. After which the plan was for Vegito to alternate between each family every week. As soon as he settled his family issues, Vegito visited the realm of the Kaioshins to request tutelage under Old Kai to learn more techniques and get stronger. Kibito Kai was puzzled as to why Vegito, who was already possibly the strongest being in the universe, wanted to get even stronger. As Old Kai stayed silent, Vegito just gave Kibito Kai a straight answer, which was he would never know as to when someone more powerful than himself would appear out there in the vast universe. Kibito Kai just nodded as he never thought of the bigger picture, and Old Kai accepted Vegito as his student. This marked the start of Vegito's new life, juggling two families and training with the Kaioshins. With his instant transmission technique inherited from Goku, he had plenty of time for all of his daily activities and regimes. Life goes on as usual for Vegito. It was already part of his daily life, spending time with his two families and training under his new teacher. But life was not without its ups and downs. DBZ Universe, 3 months time skip to the present. Back in Capsule Corp, the dining table was filled with plates and bowls that were stacked sky high. The household robots could not catch up, clearing the number of dinnerware piling up. Finishing his last bowl of rice, Vegito felt satisfied. Bulma, I'm heading off to Old Kai's. I'll be back by tomorrow night, called Vegito, as he stood up and prepared to head out. Eh? You're leaving already, Dad? Trunks whined as he rushed out, hearing that his father was leaving. Kneeling down at eye level, he patted his son on the head. I'll be gone for just 2 days. When I come back, I promise to bring you over to play with Goten. Vegito gave Trunks a reassuring smile. Delighted, Trunks returned a big smile. You promise? Yay. Mom, Dad says he'll bringing me over to Gohan Nissan's house when he gets back. Trunks waved his hands happily at his mom, trying to get her attention as she entered the dining room. Okay, I heard you, said Bulma, responding to her son's enthusiasm before looking back at her new husband. Good luck with your training. Giving a small wave to his family, the air shimmered around Vegito before he vanished out of existence. At the realm of the Kaioshins, Old Kai and Kibito Kai were suddenly contacted through telepathy by a certain being. Old Kai, how many centuries has it been? I see you have been released from the Z Sword? The being spoke. Its voice sounded deep and filled with authority. Sweat beads began forming on Old Kai's purplish head as he felt pressured. I heard it was a half-scion who broke the sword and released you by accident. I thought you weren't supposed to let outsiders enter the realm of the Kaioshins. The voice continued. Kibito Kai was frightened. He let out a gulp before the voice spoke through the mental link again. Ah, the small Kaioshin, quite amusing of you fusing with your helper. I know what you're thinking, and I won't be destroying any planets, rest assured. Kibito Kai let out a sigh of relief. Old Kai finally spoke up, if I may ask, Lord Barris. Barris replied, what is it? He sounded carefree. What is your purpose in contacting us? Old Kai inquired. He spoke with a humble tone. careful not to anger Beerus in any way. Lord Beerus, hailed as the god of destruction, was a godly being whose occupation was to destroy planets in contrast to the Kaioshians who create planets. All these were to maintain balance in the universe. Beerus stayed silent before replying with a serious tone, "We will be holding a meeting session in your realm, Old Kai." He paused for a brief period. "It's regarding that scion student of yours. Thus, please invite him over for the meeting," said Beerus, sounding even more serious. "Oh, and one more thing, you have 1 minute," warned Beerus before cutting off the mental link. As if returning back to reality, Kibito Kai exclaimed frantically, "A meeting so fast? It isn't even that time yet. We've got to call Vegito over as soon as possible." "Keep it down, I know that already. I was about to contact him." Old Kai was cut off as the air before the two Kaioshians shimmered and there appeared Vegito. "Yo, Old Kai and Kibito Kai, I'm here for today's training," Vegito greeted excitedly, for he was anxious to know what new technique will he be taught this time. "Now's not the time for training, Lord Beerus is arriving. And we have to prepare for the meeting," yelled Kibito Kai as he waved his hands around frantically. Old Kai merely just sighed. "Who's this Beerus guy? And what meeting?" Vegito was confused at the sudden amount of information being forced upon him so suddenly. "Don't be rude. He is the god of destruction, Lord Beerus. He works hand in hand with us Kaioshians to maintain balance in the universe by destroying planets while we create new ones. Best is not to anger him, or who know what he'll." Kibito Kai have yet to finish his sentence as a third person interrupted. "Or what?" stated a familiar voice from behind Kibito Kai. "Eek!" Kibito Kai shuddered as he knew whose voice it belonged to. The voice belonged to the god of destruction, Lord Beerus. He is a thin, purple cat-like humanoid, with large pointed ears, similar to that of bats. He dons black, blue, and gold Egyptian-looking attire with white and orange diamond decorations on it. "So I take it that you're the one they call Lord Beerus, the god of destruction?" Vegito questioned as he walked past Kibito Kai facing Beerus. "That's odd, I can't seem to sense his ki," Vegito thought to himself as he could not sense any form of ki coming from Beerus. "Vegito! Mind your manners, he is the god of destruction," Kibito Kai scolded Vegito comically. Beerus merely answered in a polite manner, "Why yes I am. And you must be the scion called Vegito, born from fusion using the Potara earrings which Old Kai gave you. Not to mention you destroyed that little pinky of a demon." Vegito was surprised as he knew quite a lot about him and the things he did, as Beerus has never met him before. "And who's that guy beside you?" Vegito simply asked. "Pardon me, my name is Wee. I am the attendant of Lord Beerus." Whis apologized as he did not properly introduce himself to Vegito. Whis is a character with teal skin, white hair, and rather effeminate features. He holds a long scepter with a gem that floats above it. Around his neck is a large light blue ring. Whis' attire consists of a maroon robe, a black cuirass with the same white and orange diamond decorations as the god of destruction Beerus, and a blue sash. He also seems to wear black high-heeled shoes with white spats. "Him too, I can't feel his ki." Vegito was getting curious. "Let's begin the meeting, shall we?" Beerus ordered. "Ah, yes Lord Beerus. I'll go prepare our meeting table." Kibito Kai walked towards a nearby tree and magically summoned a royalty-themed table along with a few chairs. Beerus and Whis took one side of the table while the Kaioshians and Vegito sat opposite them. Beerus sat with his right elbow on the chair, his cheek resting on his arm, and his body leaning towards the right. His left leg crossed over his right with his shin resting on his thigh respectively. Beerus then initiated the meeting. "Before we begin the meeting, I'm sure you have a lot of questions to ask. You're also probably confused as to what is currently happening." Beerus spoke, referring to Vegito in his sentences. "As you would probably know, I am the god of destruction and thus I have full authority to destroy planets at will. After which the Kaioshians would create new ones as replacements for the ones I've destroyed." Beerus lectured. Vegito folded his arms and replied, "So as to maintain balance within the universe?" Pretty smart for a scion. Though Beerus was being sarcastic with his remarks. Vegito maintained his composure, not a bit fazed by Barris' taunt. Barris then continued on, every 1,000 years we would hold a coordination meeting with the Kaioshians, but today is an exception due to an emergency. Vegito just raised an eyebrow. Old Kai then spoke up, what might the emergency be, Lord Barris? Whis replied instead, the emergency is Usion. He pointed at Vegito with a calm but serious look. Old Kai then looked down as he already knew what Whis was referring to from his reply, but Kibito Kai was as confused as Vegito was. Vegito? Why? Kibito Kai asked, curious to find out. Vegito listened in closely. It's regarding Vegito's existence, as it will bring about destruction to the universe, explained Whis. The Potara earrings are an artifact created by the Kaioshians generations ago, and as you all might have known by now, it fuses two individuals together to form a single being whose resultant power are the combined strength of the two fusees, magnified by a number of times. The fusion, however, is permanent even if you were to take off the earrings. Whis paused before continuing. But because it was designed only for the Kaioshians' use, if someone other than a Kaioshian uses it to fuse, the resulting existence born as a result would be an anomaly, and that very existence would cause the dimension to collapse if left alone for long enough, warned Whis as he finished his explanation. Barris then pointed at Vegito with his cat-like nails sticking out from the tip of his fingers. Scion, there are two available paths for you to take. Barris spoke before lifting his fingers, showing the number 1 gesture with his hand. First would be for you to be sent into another dimension where you will never return. Barris emphasized, after which he lifted his middle finger, showing the number 2 gesture. The last option, where if you do not comply, would be for you to be obliterate from existence together with your planet, threatened Barris as he let his arm down. Vegito fell silent, shocked at the truth revealed before him. He didn't know his existence would cause the demise of the entire dimension. His loved ones, his friends, and every single being in his dimension is going to be erased. Vegito closed his eyes, memories of his days since his fusion flashed across his mind. The enjoyable times he spent with his sons, his wives, and his friends. It was time to put it behind him. He made up his mind. Fine, I'll leave this dimension, said Vegito in a calm manner. A wise decision, commented Whis as he rose from his seat, walking a few feet away from the meeting table with the others following behind. He raised his staff before bringing it back down to the ground with a thud. And next the gem on his staff glowed before a green portal large enough to fit Broly through expanded out from a single point out of nothingness in front of him. He stepped to the side, signaling for Vegito to enter. As Vegito stepped in front of the portal, Old Kai came up beside him along with Kibito Kai before speaking up. Vegito, I'm sorry it had to end like this. But on behalf of the entire universe, I thank you for all that you've done. Old Kai thanked Vegito, grateful for the hero he is, for bringing peace to the universe. We will be eternally grateful to you, Vegito. You'll be a hero, a legend that will forever be remembered. Kibito Kai said with a sad tone. Vegito gave a thumbs up in return for the thanks and thanked them in return. Thanks guys, for allowing me to be born into this world. Oh yeah, help me tell the news to my family and friends, tell them I'm sorry. Staring into the portal, Vegito readied himself for his final moments on this dimension. Sorry guys, for leaving so suddenly, as I didn't wanted to see you guys break down in front of me. I'm sorry Bulma, Chi-Chi, for being able to stay by your sides anymore. Trunks, I'm sorry, I couldn't keep our promise. Emotions brewed within Vegito and he held it in, before calming himself down a while later. As much as he did not want to, he threw his current life behind him as he stepped towards the portal. He made up his mind. He was going to start afresh in the new dimension. The portal rippled like ripples on the pond as Vegito stepped through it, soon vanishing behind it. The green portal then shrunk towards its center point till no traces of it was left. Vegito was gone. Inside the interdimensional rift, it was as if laws of physics were going haywire as Vegito was flung around while falling through what seemed like an endless tunnel. Unable to control his directional movement, Vegito could only wait while he thought what the new dimension would appear. Will it have another Earth? Or maybe there will be powerful opponents whom I can finally get to fight evenly with, or perhaps they are even stronger than I am. Thinking that there would finally be challenge for him made his scion blood race in adrenaline. Soon, Vegito could see what seemed like the exit of the tunnel, which looked like the exact same green portal which he stepped through earlier. As he fell through completely, he tried to break his fall and found out that he could move freely again. Using his ki, he stopped himself in midair, and started surveying his surroundings, which was filled with trees and greenery pretty much like his previous home. He also noted that it was night time, as he looked into the sky above, seeing stars and noticing that it was a full moon. Wow, they also have a moon, just like we did. Though it got destroyed by Piccolo. Vegito chuckled to himself, recalling when Gohan saying that Piccolo destroyed the moon to stop his great Saiyan ape transformation. Smelling that something was burning beneath him, Vegito looked down and saw flames crackling, burning down whatever was remaining of the building. One look and he knew at an instant that this was no accident, as there were no key signatures detected within the building, nor were there anyone down there. Expanding his sensing further around him, he noted 3 odd signatures moving away from the direction where he is and immediately knew that they were the ones responsible for this. Their ki were filled with malicious intent, but there was something off about it that made Vegito infer that they were no ordinary beings. Just as he arrived, things are already get interesting, and he was starting to like it here. Going back to the current situation, Vegito felt that it was best for him to leave the area, as he did not want to be held responsible for this mess because of a misunderstanding. Alright, let's see what those guys are up to. Referring to the 3 key signatures he sensed earlier, Vegito flew towards his targets, making sure he is well hidden above the clouds. Looking from above, he saw buildings of different sizes that were similar to the ones back in his dimension, and humans are also inhabiting this planet just like the one he came from. This must most likely be the Earth of this dimension. Vegito concluded without a doubt, as it shows so much resemblance to his dimension's Earth. As he was enjoying the nostalgic scene before him, images flashed before his eyes, causing him to stop in his tracks. Arg! Ugh! Damn! It! Vegito clutched his head as he cursed at letting his guard down carelessly, as a mental intruder intruded his mind, causing immense headaches as well as images flashing across his mind. Vegito groaned in agony before he shouted. Enough! Vegito concentrated hard despite the mind-aching pain caused by the mental assailant, cutting off the mental connection to his mind, blocking out the intruder. Vegito breathed out a sign of relief as he was finally free from the mental torture. TSK, still trying to get to me, eh? Not if I get to you first, he declared, as the mental assailant was still trying to get into Vegito's head. Just as he was about to sense for the attacker's key, the mental intrusion attempt stopped and Vegito could not sense the attacker's key. It was as if any traces of the mental assailant vanished. Damn! He cursed, but he decided to drop the pursuit as he was worn out by the earlier mental struggle. Descending down into the woods below, Vegito searched for a nice quiet spot to spend the night. Under a tree beside a long flowing river, Vegito removed his ki and dived into the river, hoping to catch some dinner. Much to his disappointment, the fishes in this river were only a fraction of what he used to catch in the rivers back at Mount Pazu. Giving up his hunt for dinner, Vegito donned his gi and took out a senzu bean from a small pocket hidden on his gi. Back in his dimension, he would always carry 3 of those beans with him everywhere he goes, just in case, a habit inherited from Goku. Popping the bean into his mouth, he chewed it a few times before swallowing it. His muscles bulked for a moment before returning back to its original size, with the effects of the senzu bean kicking in, filling his hunger and recovering his energy. He also felt a negligible increase in his power level. Vegito yawned as he stretched his arms out wide, tired from the events that happened today. Placing his hands clutched together behind his head as a pillow, Vegito lay down under the tree, thinking, exploring the world in the morning, putting aside the unknown beings with weird key signatures for now. As he thought of what exciting things he might see tomorrow, he slowly drifted to sleep. In the early morning, when the sun had just begun to rise, A large group of civilians gathered around outside a government building in Metropolis City with some people holding signs that shows their displeasure against nuclear weapons. In front of them was a guy wearing a beanie and holding onto a loud hailer, voicing his displeasure on the country's accumulation of nuclear-armed weapons. They stockpiled enough nuclear missiles to destroy our entire planet, and yet they continue to build more. We demand they stop this madness. Pumping his fist into the air, the group of protesters followed suit, shouting and demanding the production of nuclear weapons to be stopped. While the protests were ongoing, inside the government building, an international meeting was being held. Representatives from each country were sent to participate in the meeting with regards to whether the use and production of nuclear weaponry is necessary. The Japan representative stood up, gathering the attention of all. My people believe that lasting peace can only be achieved by eliminating these weapons of mass destruction, said Japan's representative as he voiced his opinion. Nonsense. America's representative retorted. Those weapons are our only defense against aggression. He argued, trying to show the importance of continue the production of the nuclear weapons. No, General, said Carter, as he walked up the platform towards Speaker's table. J. Allen Carter, the astronaut who went on a mission on Mars a few months ago, came back and was elected as a member of the U.S. Senate. But Senator Carter, only a fool would the General of the U.S. Army rebuked but was cut off by the senator. Listen, when I was an astronaut on Mars, I survived an experience which profoundly changed my life. Looking at Earth at that distance, I saw for the first time how small and fragile our planet is. Its fate is in our hands. Everyone quietly listened at Carter speaking of his personal life experiences. He paused before continuing, Ladies and gentlemen, this is a responsibility we must not take lightly. Therefore today I propose a bold new solution for peace, one that would use a force more powerful than any before, a force dedicated to the good of all mankind, a force known to all as Superman, declared Carter with force as he ended his speech. As the guards opened the doors, Superman walked in, catching the attention of all who were currently present in the meeting hall, causing whispers and comments on the Man of Steel. Superman walked onto the presentation stage and shook hands with J. Carter before the general spoke up again. With all due respect, Senator, but we can't just entrust the security of the entire world to one man, argued the general, not trusting the idea that Superman can alone protect the entire Earth should any danger occur. Upon hearing his opinion, Superman walked up to the speaker's table and to try and convince the general to believe in him. I understand your feelings, General. When Senator Carter first approached me, I was reluctant to get involved. But after meeting with him and his advisors, I became convinced that I could make a difference. I have fought hard over the years to earn their trust, and I solemnly swear to all of you that I will continue to uphold the ideals and justice for everyone, not just for America, but for all of mankind. Applause filled the hall as the Man of Steel made his oath, ending the meeting. Flying high above in the skies, a certain black-haired scion observed the city. It was pretty much the same back in his home, except this planet clearly does not have hover cars. It was in the morning and the city was populated from people going off to work and carrying on with their daily life. This nostalgic feeling made his emotions stir a little, but it was all in the past now. Right now, this was his home. He will be living the rest of his life here in this dimension, on this planet which was too, called the Earth. Alright, time to see what else this planet has to offer, Vegito said to himself as he sped off to tour the planet. Thus, Vegito spent his entire days sightseeing, visiting other countries while staying in the skies throughout as he wanted to familiarize himself with his new home. Across the globe, all of the news headlines were regarding the plans to disarm all nuclear-related weaponry and how Superman would aid in the disarmament. With the Man of Steel as Earth's defense, along with the anti-nuclear solution, people from all over the world were rejoicing and cheering for Superman, although some people remained skeptical. Feeling happy for how things turned out, Superman reached for the remote and turned off the TV before heading for his bed. Approaching at supersonic speeds, Vegito returned to Metropolis City from his tour around the Earth and stopped in mid-air, hovering above the city. It was a fulfilling experience as he had seen many places of attraction that his old Earth seemed to lack. He even noted an island where there were only females inhabiting in it. This Earth sure is amazing, the geographical features are so different from the Earth where I came from, thought Vegito as he recalled visiting a total of 7 continents where back on his Earth there was only one big continent with 2 other smaller ones. Concluding his views and thoughts of his new home planet, Vegito let out a satisfying groan as he stretched his arms out wide. Just as Vegito was about to retire for the day, he felt a mental attempt trying to enter his mind. This time, Vegito was on guard and his mental shield was blocking out the intruder. Then, something else caught his attention. He sensed a huge spike in ki below him, and it was fluctuating rapidly. From one of the buildings, a certain man of steel was convulsing and screaming in agony as a series of mental images flashed before him along with a torturous headache. That's strange, it seems he's the only one being attacked apart from me, Vegito thought as he accessed the situation. In a moment, the mental intrusion stopped, and the other victim's ki fluctuation seems to have stopped. The mental attack this time seemed to have ended faster than the one before. At the same time back in his apartment, just as the mental attack ended, Superman got up from his bed, with his head feeling sore and heavy from the headache. He went over to the washroom to wash his face. He looked into the mirror trying to recollect what happened during the mental attack, but suddenly, his attention was cut off as he heard a certain beeping sound. Identifying it as one of the distress watches he gave to his friend, it can only mean that Batman was in grave danger as he would never call for help. Suiting up, he opened his window and flew off towards the beeping sound. Just as he was about to retire for the night, Vegito sensed another spike in ki, but this time it was increasing at a slow but stable rate till it stopped. Vegito observed as a man wearing a bright red and blue uniform with a red cape climbed out of his window before flying off opposite of his direction. The ki, though not as huge as Vegito's, rivaled super perfect cells. Well, it looks like there are some interesting individuals on this planet, commented Vegito in his mind as he was getting excited that even the Earth here had fighters of this level. Curious on what he's up to, Vegito followed loosely after him, locking onto his key signature so that he could follow without being seen or losing him. Superman arrived hovering above an abandoned factory. Hearing the beeping noise coming from inside, Superman descended. Opening the door, Superman walked in and the scene before him looked as if a fight had broke out, with boxes everywhere, tables upturned, everything was scattered all about the room. Vegito landed beside the door seeing that Superman had entered the factory, and he peeked through a corner of a window to spy on him. Turning to his left, Superman saw a collapsed cupboard with a black gloved hand exposed holding onto his signal watch. Oh no, Batman! Superman gasped as he lifted the cupboard with no effort and threw it to the side as if it was weightless. Lying unconscious on the floor was the Dark Knight, who was apparently attacked and injured. Picking him and carrying him on his hands, Superman turned around preparing to rush Batman to the nearest hospital, but he noticed what looked like a person's shadow outside at the door. "Who's there?" Superman demanded as he sped out towards the door, wanting to find out if it was the person who did this to his friend. Crap! Vegito cursed in his head as he placed 2 fingers on his forehead just like how Goku did the instant transmission technique. The air shimmered and in an instant, he was gone just when Superman arrived outside the door with his super speed. Coincidentally, a giant flaming meteor happened to fly past the factory and then out of sight as it went behind a tall building. It crash-landed in the middle of the city's central park, dragging itself, digging up the earth due to momentum of the fall before finally stopping in the middle of a road junction, leaving behind its trail of destruction exposing the earth. Drivers jammed their brakes upon seeing the flaming meteor and quickly got out of their cars and ran for their lives, while others just made an about turn before driving off away from the danger. Realizing that his friend needed medical attention, Superman flew off towards the meteor as there might be an ambulance there in case there were any casualties, and at the same time he could take a closer look and inspect it. Soaring over the crash site, Superman surveyed the area and was relieved that there were no death casualties, though there were some who were injured by the debris flying everywhere from the meteor's landing. Spotting an ambulance that just arrived, Superman descended towards the two paramedics who were deploying a stretcher for the injured. "Medic, he needs help," Superman called as he touched the ground. He placed the injured Batman onto the deployed stretcher as the medic tended to him. "What happened to him?" the lady paramedic inquired about Batman's injury. "I'm not sure," said Superman as he quickly turned and flew off to tend to the chaotic situation, with fire trucks arriving and heading towards the meteor. Someone could be hurt and requires immediate attention, thus he needed to act fast. Soon, the news reporters arrived one after another in cars, while some arrived in helicopters to get a bird's eye view on the whole scene. With fire hoses aimed at the fire, jets of water were sprayed around and on the burning meteor itself, causing it to be covered in smoke. As the firemen did their best to swiftly put out the fire, which they did within a few minutes, the smoke gradually cleared, exposing a hot steaming meteor. "Look at the size of that thing!" exclaimed one of the city guards. "Careful, it's still hot," warned another. At the top of a building nearby, a certain Scion was observing the entire situation. It looked like they handled the situation pretty well. Vegito stopped his thoughts as his key sense was tingling, sensing multiple key disturbances coming from within the meteor. "Oh? This is getting interesting." Vegito smirked as he continued to observe at a distance. It was only for a short while after the fire was put out before steam forced its way out through various small openings on the surface of the meteor, causing a hissing sound effect. "What was that?" asked one of the city guards, suspecting that something was wrong before the ground started shaking as if there was an earthquake, which in actual fact was actually coming from the meteor, as something within it was causing a vibration force so intense that it affected its surroundings. Car alarms went off and metallic objects rattled as the vibration shook an area of the city with the meteor as its core. Suddenly the vibration from within the meteor died down and it spewed another wave of steam, directing everyone's attention back at the meteor. To everyone's surprise, a long and sharp limb which looked like a scythe pierced through the side of the meteor and bent downwards, trying to secure itself on the ground. Two city guards who were standing in the way of the sharp-looking limb, had a close brush with death before the Man of Steel swooped down and picked them up, avoiding the falling limb that embedded itself fiercely into the ground. Superman made a turn away from the meteor but stopped halfway, reacting at the nick of time as another limb broke through the meteor, driving its sharp tip into the ground. Superman quickly flew back towards the crowd, dropping off the two city guards, and turned back just to see a third limb breaking out from the meteor, plunging its sharp tip onto the ground beneath it. The limbs then pulled itself upright with parts of the meteor crumbling off, revealing the upper part of its body, which probably was its head. The creature that rose from within the meteor stood on three of its sharp, menacing limbs, and had red markings all over with a muzzle at the middle frontal portion of its head. Its entire body was also encased with a hard carapace. Vegito stood unfazed by the situation, as he was used to such experiences, and thus, he continued to observe, not wanting to make his appearance known unless he really had to. Back at the scene below, the people were stunned as they continued to stare upon the giant walker. The cameraman continued to point his camera at the walker, recording the whole scene live on the news. "Incredible. Is it some kind of machine?" commented the reporter, amazed by the existence of such a thing. The giant walker angled its head down by a few degrees, its muzzle widened, then shrinking smaller as it charged energy inside its muzzle. Having charged enough energy, the walker fired off a bright red beam which impacted the front of a police car, moving along and proceeding to cut it in half, causing the police car to explode. Not wanting any more destruction to occur, the Man of Steel flew towards the giant walker, wanting to take it down before it causes any more damage to his beloved city. Seeing as Superman was flying towards it, the walker charged another round of energy and fired at its target. "Argah!" Superman screamed as he took a direct hit from the energy beam and got pushed backwards, impacting the roof of a building before bouncing off, crash landing on the road, causing a deformed hole appearing where he laid stunned. The creature continued wrecking anything in its path, driving its sharp limb into a fire truck, causing it to explode, while the police and city guards fired rounds of bullets, trying to take down that thing. The hardened carapace of the walker shielded it from the bullets, and the shots fired didn't even leave a mark. The giant walker this time charged its beam longer as it continued to take hits from the bullets unharmed before it fired a continuous red beam which tore through a few vehicles causing them to blow up, flinging the people away caused by the shock wave from the explosion, injuring them. With the destruction caused, the walker marched forward while crushing anything that stood in its way. Light from an explosion nearby caught the attention of the two medics as they turned their attention towards the light source, curious as to what was happening. Using the distraction, the Dark Knight shot his bat grapple into the sky where his batwing waited, hovering above. His grapple pulled him upwards just as the medic turned back to find that their patient disappeared. Looking up, they saw Batman entering his batwing and flying off to combat the invader from space. The walker fired another beam, moving it across the building, trying to bring the entire structure down. As he locked on the walker, Batman fired two missiles which exploded upon impacting the walker's head. As the smoke cleared, Batman was shocked as the walker took no damage from his missiles and did not seem like it was fazed by the impact at all. The walker replied by firing its own weapon, trying to shoot down its opponent, but Batman just easily maneuvered out of harm's way, making the walker seem like a lousy shooter. Seeing that it was not working, the walker now fired shorter bursts of its beams at rapid intervals, hoping that it was enough to bring down its opponent, but as an expert pilot, Batman simply dodged everything. Not bad. He's putting up a good fight despite not having superpowers like that other big guy, commended Vegito in his mind, though it was clearly not enough to take down a threat of that capability. I'll keep an eye on these two for now, thought Vegito as he registered both Superman and Batman's key signatures to the back of his mind. Ugh! Superman groaned as he was helped up by the citizens. Ready for round two, Superman flew off as a beam destroyed a chunk of the Daily Planet building. Flying towards the walker, which was now in the open waters near the city's bridge, clasping his fingers together, he swung both his hands and smacked the walker with enough force causing it to stagger to the left, to the right, and then back left, before hitting harder at the last swing, enough for it to fall backwards, leaning against the bridge's support pillar. Seeing that it is stunned, Superman flew on top of the head punching it 2 times, making a crack before trying to pry open its head. But before he could totally pry it open, the walker recovered and shot a beam which flung Superman towards an opposite building, where he fell with rocks piling on top of him. The walker then stood back up, preparing to resume its destruction, but the Batwing flew by and shot another 2 missiles, temporarily preventing the walker from making its move as it waited for the smoke to clear before it tracked down the Batwing and then trying to shoot it down once more. Trapped underneath the rubble, the Man of Steel recovered from the laser attack, and pushed the giant rubble off, freeing himself. Huff, huff, whatever that thing is, I've got to stop it before, said Superman, but he paused as he noticed from afar that 2 more walkers broke out of the meteor from before. One was troublesome enough, but 3? He was holding back before, afraid that he might accidentally damage his surroundings, but now that everything is being destroyed, he could not afford to hold back his strength any longer. And just as he was about to fight back, mental images flashed through his mind again and the headache followed along. He screamed in agony, clutching his head as the mental assault continued. TCH, trying to enter my mind again? Vegito sneered as the mental attack tried to break through Vegito's shield, but then suddenly, from its usual unstable state, it somehow calmed down, which Vegito felt and knew straight away that it was not a mental attack but someone trying to communicate through telepathy. He brought his mental shield down and all he heard was, "Come quick," before the communication ended. This time, he knew where the telepathy user was, as he clearly wasn't human. Looking back at Superman, he saw him standing motionless, staring straight ahead looking at God knows what before suddenly taking off flying in the opposite direction of the chaos, passing Batman on the way. "Where's he going?" asked Batman to no one in particular as 5 fighter planes arrived and flew alongside the Batman. Each firing a pair of missiles, the planes then scatter as the missiles exploded harmlessly on the walkers. As the smoke cleared, the walkers fired beams, trying to take down the planes. On the ground, military tanks arrived at the scene and fired continuously, keeping the walkers distracted. Seeing that the military are temporarily stalling the walkers, Batman turned his Batwing around towards Superman's direction. Sensing that the two superheroes left the scene, Vegito finally levitated off the building and followed Batman while not letting his presence be known. As he was tailing the Batwing, Vegito sensed multiple walkers all over Earth, in most of the countries that he had visited during his tour, and their numbers seemed to be increasing. Vegito was already itching for a battle as his scion instincts are causing adrenaline to run through his whole body, but for now he wanted to find out who the telepath was, and the limits the Earth's fighters as well. The Earth was not in danger of being destroyed yet, and Vegito knew that for the invaders did not have the capability to cause that much damage within such a short time. On a certain island, two women riding on horses on its shores were staring into the far horizon of the sea. One of them spoke with a worried tone, "These omens, mankind must be facing its darkest hours." The woman wore a white one-piece dress and had black silky hair and sapphire blue eyes. She was a beauty. She looked up into the heavens, hoping that she was wrong. "Then mankind will be facing it alone," said the older woman with blonde hair. "How could you say that?" the sapphire-eyed woman questioned. "Whatever happens beyond these shores is not our concern." She paused and turned her horse before riding off. She then continued, "Here the gods will protect us." Disappointed at what she had heard, the sapphire-eyed woman replied softly, "I hope you're right." Flying over the snowlands, what Batman saw was as if someone or something went on a rampage, leaving behind a trail of mass destruction. Tanks were bitterly crushed, military supply trucks were overturned, scattering supplies everywhere. He then saw a military building with an evidence of someone breaking through its walls. Batman descended and parked his Batwing beside the building where the human-sized hole was and got out. There, he saw that there clearly was a door, but the intruder broke through the wall instead. He knew immediately who was responsible for this because only he can attempt such a feat. Entering through the opening on the wall, the Batman surveyed the room and saw that there was a door left slightly opened. He then pushed open the door only to be shocked what he saw. Tins of red biological pods filled the room, and inside each one contains an unconscious human being who Batman suspects is a person who worked in his building. Hearing banging noises coming from another direction, the Batman walked towards the source only to find Superman punching a metallic security door, denting it further with each punch. About to make another punch, suddenly a familiar object launched itself onto the metallic surface of the door, and upon identifying the object, the Man of Steel knew immediately who it was. The Dark Knight walked out from shadows, calling out to his friend, "Hold it, Superman. Destroying government property isn't your style, what's going on?" "The mess caused outside wasn't my doing. When I came here it was already in that state. Instead, I came here because someone was calling out to me," explained Superman. Batman raised an eyebrow, not quite understanding the last part. "See for yourself," said Superman as he carried the deformed security door and threw it aside, revealing another room with a row of computers and monitors on each side, each displaying the biostatistics of an alien-looking being as shown on one of the monitors. At the very front, was another security door, though much smaller but more secure, and Superman just pushed through the door, making as if it fell off from just a mere push. What lay on the other side surprised the Batman, as he had no idea that the military was keeping such a thing, though Superman looked as if he had seen it before. Before them was a green extraterrestrial being with a well-built humanoid form, and had well-defined muscles, although they didn't follow the human muscle anatomy. One thing noticeable straight away was that it had green skin and his face was a bit elongated compared to a normal human's skull. A machine chained his limbs, restricting his movements, and had the upper part of his head inside the machine, making look as if he was wearing it. "What is it?" the Batman asked. "Mankind's last hope," replied Superman as he proceeded to free the green alien from the machine that was keeping it imprisoned. The alien fell as it does not seem to have the strength to stand on its own, probably due to the machine. Superman supported the alien, slowing its fall, and the alien managed to support itself a little with its knees and arms on the floor. "He's been trying to reach out to me telepathically, but that studies field from the machine interfered, thus causing those weird images to flash across my mind along with the headaches. Superman explained. But when the message somehow broke through, I came to rescue him. What's he doing here? Batman questioned. The invasion. The alien replied, Batman telepathically. Experiencing telepathy for the first time in his life, the Dark Knight was taken aback, not used to the feeling. I came to warn you, but I was captured and imprisoned here. They wouldn't listen. Heard the Batman as the alien spoke to him through his mind. At first he wanted to reply back telepathically, but he didn't know how to, thus he just replied normally. Big surprise. Batman remarked sarcastically. What a cliché story. Was that alien expecting him to believe that? He's heard enough of the I come in peace line that aliens tend to use before conquering the planet after gaining the people's trust. I sense you do not trust me. Perhaps this would help. The alien shape-shifted as he spoke through the mental link. His body anatomy became more similar to that of a human's, and he even managed to shape-shift an identity costume of his own through the manipulation of his body's molecular structure. He now had a rectangular-shaped head similar to a human's, and wore a blue undergarment with a red sash that wrapped around the torso of his body, forming an X on his chest. He now also wore blue boots and a blue cape with a collar. Batman was taken aback once more as he took a few steps back, afraid that he might shapeshift into his true monster-like form where he would then attack him and Superman, but he was wrong. I am John Johns, said the alien, now speaking vocally while walking towards Batman, extending his hand out to show his sincerity. But Batman just stood there, refusing to accept the handshake, still skeptical towards John. To break the awkward silence and not wanting to offend John, Superman stepped in and spoke up for Batman. Don't take it personally, John, he doesn't trust anyone. A wise policy. John simply replied. So he's the telepath, he resembles the Namekians, though they can't shapeshift. Chuckled the raven-haired. Vegito watched from far away on top a mountain cliff, as he saw Superman walking out with the other two, talking among themselves. Now to see what you guys are capable of, said Vegito as he already sensed the danger awaiting the three fighters. Beams of light are shone upon them as Superman and his gang shielded their eyes. A platoon of military soldiers stood in their path armed with rifles. Stop right there, Superman. You're trespassing on a restricted area, and our orders are to keep that freak here. The commander of the platoon commanded. Wait, I'll vouch for him, you must let us go. Superman pleaded as he stuck an arm out in an act of defending his new ally. I don't think so. The commander replied in a low-tone voice. But the world's security may be at stake. Superman argued forcefully. The commander, along with his platoon of men, suddenly elongated their body and they started turning whitish in color. Their skin, along with their uniforms, turned into some kind of translucent jelly-textured membrane, with black chunks underneath their white jelly membrane, and they retained their humanoid form. It is also noted that their guns also somehow transformed into a black biological gun with white markings all over, and a red muzzle. Recognizing this design, Batman knew immediately that they were the invaders. That's why you'll never leave here alive. The invader soldier said, as the others closed in the trio. On a certain island, inside a Greek-designed building was a hooded figure sneaking while looking behind her often, making sure that no one followed or was following her. She then arrived beneath a statue of an ancient god sitting on a chair with stairs leading upwards to the statue's base before proceeding to climb the stairs. At the base of the statue, there was a rectangular display stand which, on top, lay a set of gold-colored equipment and uniform. Removing the hood, she turned backwards staring into nothingness with her blue sapphire eyes. Forgive me, mother. She apologized as though her mother was present before she turned back and took off the robes she was wearing. Picking up the golden tiara, which has a red star imprinted in the middle, she placed it on her head which fitted perfectly. She then proceeded to the rest of the items. Back at the Snowlands, Vegito was watching from a distance at how things were about to unfold. The platoon of invader foot soldiers didn't seem like much, especially against him. Their power levels were dirt low even with them all combined. Vegito could just take them all out with a key blast. Still, he wanted to observe the abilities of the three fighters of this earth. It's them! John exclaimed, as the foot soldiers rushed in to take them out, firing the same laser beams as the invader walker but smaller and at a faster rate. With his quick reflexes, John threw himself and Batman to the side, behind an overturned Humvee while Superman got hit right in his chest. The Man of Steel got pushed back from the impact of the laser, his body colliding against a flipped-over truck behind, leaving him stunned from the attack. That guy, he's holding back for sure. And he's just too reliant on that near-invulnerable body of his. Vegito commented as he observed the fight. Noticing that Superman went down, Batman reached for his utility belt and took out an exploding batarang. "Stay down," he informed John, as he got up from cover and flung the batarang towards the foot soldiers, which few seconds later it detonated, taking a few of them out. From behind, a lone foot soldier crept up and aimed his alien rifle at the duo. "Behind you," John alerted Batman, as he turned intangible and faced right through the Batman's body, wanting to protect him. Concentrating hard enough, an aura of psionic energy surrounded John before it formed a sphere, and at the same time, the foot soldier fired a beam which hit the psionic shield that John constructed in time. Unlike a normal defensive shield, the mental shield converted the physical damage into mental damage, causing John to fall on his knees, his mind weak from the damage taken. Not letting the foot soldier take another shot at them, Batman swiftly took out and flung another batarang, which spun and hit the foot soldier on his head, knocking him out. "John, are you all right?" he asked. John shook his head and groaned as he was weakened to the state where he could barely even stand. "Hang on," Batman grunted as he placed John's arm over his shoulder and supported him up. "Get him to safety, I'll cover you," a fully recovered Superman told Batman as he held the tank up with his arms, tilting it slightly so that it shielded Batman and John from the beams fired from the alien foot soldiers. Reaching his Batwing, the canopy of his plane opened automatically as it sensed Batman's arrival. John was placed at the back seat and Batman hopped in the pilot's seat, closing the Batwing's canopy. Seated down and mentally recovered, John knew that they would need more help. His yellow eyes glowed as he opened a long-distance mental link, calling out mentally to his targets for reinforcements. Seeing that Batman and John flew off safely, he had no further use for the tank, thus he threw it towards the aliens who ran for their life, and he flew off after the Batwing. The tank exploded after colliding with the military vehicles, taking out some of the aliens. Vegito stayed silent as he lifted himself off the cliff and flew up higher into the sky, following the trio, his arms folded. He stayed at a higher altitude than them so he could continue to observe them while preventing them from spotting him. Flying side by side, Superman and the Batwing flew in the direction where Metropolis was. "That was close," said the Batman, who was now opened up a little to John, who just risked his life to save him earlier. "We're not safe yet, look," John told Batman, looking at the mountain below. The mountain looked as if half of its top half got blown off, revealing a deep dark opening. That was not the what John was referring to, of course. Instead, a fleet of enemy aircraft came from within the mountain and were hot on their heels, with more coming, following behind the main fleet. They were triangular in shape and looked like flying gray manta rays with a right wing colored pink. They also had the same weird alien pattern in front. Vegito whistled at the sheer number of flyers emerging from the mountain's opening, as even he had never fought that number of enemies before. Suddenly, he sensed several key signatures approaching his direction at a fast speed, but one of them had speeds multiple times faster than the others. Firing laser beams from below, Superman and the Batwing flew to the side opposite of each other, narrowly dodging the beams. Maneuvering around narrow spaces between the cliffs and mountains, Batman still couldn't shake the fleet off as they continued to fire at their beams, and he started to have troubles dodging them. Happened to be heading towards the group that was chasing the Batman and John, Superman flew in straight with his super speed, smashing through one of the flyers in the group, taking it down. Turning around, Superman flew towards the group of flyers pursuing him and tried to smash through them but got shot instead, with the force of the laser beam pushing him in the opposite direction, causing him to crash land on one of the cliffs on a mountain nearby. Within the Batwing, the Dark Knight's piloting skills were being pushed to its limits, dodging laser beams and maneuvering the rough terrain. He approached a narrow opening between two cliffs and tilted the Batwing, barely making it past. A few of the enemy flyers managed to make it past the narrow opening, but the rest of the fleet avoided when one of them crashed when trying to get through. Out in the open with nowhere to run, the Batwing was now completely exposed to attacks. The enemy aircraft fired at the Batwing and one of the beams hit and broke off one of its wings. With the Batman and Johns inside, the Batwing started to lose altitude, but Batman would not give up. He tried to steer the plane so that it would land safely, but the momentum from the plane swirling was making it impossible to do so. The plane continued to plummet but out of a sudden, it slowed to a sudden stop and it jerked a little, causing an alarmed and confused Batman to look left and right of his surroundings. He noticed that his surroundings became greenish in color. "What happened?" asked Batman. John merely replied, "Help has arrived." Looking above, Batman saw a beam of green light which he guessed was probably responsible for saving their life. Tracing the beam to its source, he saw a dark-skinned man wearing a black and green tight suit with a green emblem in the middle of his chest. He also wore a ring which was the item responsible for producing the green beam of light which was somehow holding the Batwing in midair. He was John Stewart, also known as the Green Lantern. He wanted to move the Batwing to a safe location but was distracted as the alien flyers fired at him. It was when a shadow of someone passed him and he looked up, seeing a woman with wings and wore an outfit that consisted of a yellow top, and a black and red bottom while wearing a hawk mask. She also wielded a mace which crackled with electricity as she held it with both hands, which formed an electrical barrier of sorts around the spiky head of the mace. This was Hawkgirl from the planet Thanagar. "You're out!" Hawkgirl roared and flew towards one of the enemy flyers, swinging her energy-infused mace down on the flyer, smashing a hole through its roof. As the flyer exploded, she did a front flip off the exploded flyer and using the momentum from the flip, she swung her mace once more at the next enemy flyer, hitting it at its base before flying off as it explodes as well. "Hawkgirl? What's she doing here?" Batman asked, confused at how the Earth's superheroes are arriving one after another to aid them. He didn't contact them for help, and neither did Superman. Johns ignored his question and simply phased through the canopy of the Batwing, using his ability to fly while the Green Lantern moved the damaged Batwing on to higher grounds. The Batman was out of commission, and he had to sit this one out as much as he hated it. John joined up with the Green Lantern in the air along with the arrival of Superman and Hawkgirl. "Sorry I'm late, I had some urgent business to attend to." John apologized as the four superheroes flew off to combat the fleet of alien flyers. "Still missing the other two. They should be arriving any moment now," Vegito said, still with his arms folded, leaning against the mountaintop. Charging in, they tore through a group of flyers with their individual superpowers. A flyer fired its beams at Hawkgirl, who evaded them before going in melee range, swinging her crackling mace down on one of the flyer's wing, then flying to its other side and doing the same before flying off to battle the next one, leaving the flyer to explode from the damage. John Stewart fired his own beam using his ring, tearing apart an incoming flyer, blowing it up. Johns turned intangible, positioning himself such that there were two flyers in opposite directions of him, making them fire through him, destroying each other. Superman simply used his super strength and speed to fly and tear through multiple flyers with ease. As she was being fired upon and chased by a flyer, stray laser beam hit the cliff beside Hawkgirl and the force from the explosion knocked her off the sky, landing on another cliff on the opposite side. When she tried to get up, the alien flyer that was chasing her was closing in, preparing to fire its beams. It was then when a beauty descended from the sky in front of her wearing silver-trimmed red leggings and gold-trimmed red and blue one-piece suit. She also wore a pair of silver bracelets and a golden tiara with a red star imprinted in the middle. "Allow me," said the beauty, as she stared confidently at the enemy with her sapphire blue eyes. The enemy aircraft fired continuous bursts of beams at the newcomer, which she swiftly deflected them all with her silver bracelets, a few which got deflected back at the flyer, taking it down with its own attacks. However, The flyer fell towards the newcomer and Hawkgirl, and both of them braced for impact, but it never came. John projected a barrier with his ring, shielding the two damsels in distress from the falling flyer. "Who's the rookie in the tiara?" John asked as Superman appeared behind him holding an enemy flyer. "I'm not sure." "Ugh!" grunted Superman as he tossed the flyer he was holding to the side, crashing it against a cliff. More beams are fired as two more flyers appeared, catching them off guard. Superman got shot and was sent crashing onto the walls of a cliff. John shielded himself with his power ring, while the newcomer deflected as many beams as she could. Appearing as a red and yellow streak, he ran circles around the two flyers and generated a tornado, trapping them in midair inside the tornado, where they smashed into each other. Seeing that they could not win, the rest of the fleet flew off. "Even the Flash is here?" Batman said as he narrowly dodged the falling debris. The red and yellow streak went off in another direction before suddenly reappearing again and stopping next to Batman, holding onto a black piece of object which looked like a piece of the bat wing which got blown off earlier. "Hey Bats, I think you dropped this," said the Flash with a smile on his face. Wearing a red costume with lightning designs on his suit, he held the title of the fastest man alive, and more importantly, known as the Flash, Wally West. Eventually, Superman and the newcomer arrived next to Batman, and with her revealing outfit and beauty, she immediately caught the attention of Flash. "Wow, where have you been all my life?" commented Flash half-jokingly as he was entranced by the newcomer's beauty. "The mascara," the newcomer replied. "Huh? The home of the Amazons, I always thought it was merely a legend." Hawkgirl filled in on the details, as she landed, along with Jon Stewart and John Johns. "I assure you, it is as real as the ground on which we stand. I am Diana, Princess of the Amazons," assured the newcomer. "Diana. Pinch me, I must be dreaming now," cried the Flash as Superman gave him a slight jab with his elbow. Diana continued, "The mascara is protected by the gods, but I couldn't idly stand by as the rest of the world is in danger." "It was lucky you showed up when you did," said Superman. "No, not luck," John interrupted as everyone turned their attention towards him. "I summoned them. But we're still short of one person." "What do you mean?" Batman asked coldly while everyone looked at each other and then back at John, wanting an answer. Above them on a cliff near the mountaintop, a certain black-haired scion smirked as he levitated and floated outwards in the open space away from the mountain, spotting a group of enemies approaching. It was his turn to play. Unfortunately for Batman, he is not going to get his answers anytime soon as laser beams narrowly missed all of them. It was a miracle that none of them got hit. The group of enemy flyers that shot at them flew past them overhead, and they brought reinforcements. A group of alien walkers arrived before them, charging their lasers as the team was caught off guard. It was when the team of superheroes got into their fighting stances, ready to face the army head-on, a bright yellow beam of solid physical energy shot out from the top right corner of their eyes, easily piercing through the head of the walker closest to them, stopping halfway in midair, not continuing towards the ground as if time had stopped. The charging energy from the pierced walker died out as the rest of the walkers stopped charging their beams and turned towards the source of the beam, which prompted the team of heroes to look as well. Descending towards them with the energy beam still intact coming from his two fingers, a certain raven-haired man remarked, "He means me Bats." Picking up the conversation from where they last got interrupted. Dismissing the beam, the walker exploded and the man hovered in midair in front of the heroes, facing the group of reinforcement aliens with a serious yet cocky attitude. "He's not seriously going to do what I think he's about to do, right?" Hawkgirl questioned, not taking her eyes off the unknown person who just took down a walker with that energy attack of his. "That guy's insane, there's no way he could take on all of them, he's gonna get himself killed," John exclaimed as he had never seen anyone as reckless as this guy. Charging their beams, the Green Lantern constructed a dome-shaped shield around the team as he braced himself from the attack. The walkers blasted their fully charged beams directly at the new guy, causing an explosion on impact. As smoke filled the air, everyone watched on as no one knew if the new guy was dead. No one, not even Superman, could have taken on that attack unharmed. Slowly the smoke cleared, everyone stared at disbelief. Really? I was expecting something out of that blast though. With his palm straight out in front of him, the newcomer appeared to have taken no damage, not even his clothes were affected. It was as if his clothes were made out of some strong resistant fabric or something. No way. The Flash could only stare and admire the magnificent display of strength by the new guy. Whoever he is, it was a good thing that he does not seem to be one of them. My turn. The man said, as he spread out his 5 fingers, each charging a little ball of energy of some sort no bigger than a marble before they scattering forward, spreading out, homing towards and hitting the remaining walkers right in their muzzles, causing them to explode of the inside out. The group flyers from before returned and flew past, turning around at a distance in front. The man let out arrogant smirk as he retracted his fingers as if signaling the flyers to stop. What's he up to now? John wondered aloud. The group of alien flyers approached, and at the same time when they fired their lasers, the team heard the man shout, "Big Bang attack!" Before a blue energy sphere 4 times the size of a basketball expanded instantly in front of his palm and shot forward. The laser beams from the flyers impacted the blue energy sphere harmlessly, and as it collided with the flyer in the middle of the group, detonating, and the explosion expanding outwards, obliterating the entire group of flyers. What came next was a moment of silence as the man turned around and levitated towards them, landing to meet the team. The man was wearing a blue-colored gi with an orange shirt underneath, as well as white-colored boots and gloves, and also a pair of yellow earrings. His hair was raven black and spiked upwards as if defying gravity, with a widow peak and 2 bangs sticking out looking like a downward V shape. "So I take it as you are the Earth's protectors?" The raven-haired man spoke with a friendly and carefree look, breaking the ice-cold silence. Superman stepped out to meet the man face to face. He noticed that the man's voice sounded unique, almost as if it was a mixture of 2 different voices. He has never encountered someone with such a strange-sounding voice before. "Yes, we are. My name is Superman, protector of the city Metropolis, and this is Batman, the Dark Knight of Gotham City, the Flash, the Green Lantern John Stewart, Hawk Girl, John Johns, and Diana, Princess of the Amazons," said Superman, introducing each of the Earth's superheroes. "And who might you be? I've never seen you around before." "You can call me Vegito. I'm a scion, and I came from Earth in another dimension." That's it for today. Please comment for a part 2.